I am Inka Larissa.
And I am Jennifer Rose.
Whisky Sisters, the podcast.
We're two whiskey pals serving a weekly whiskey podcast and rocking your whiskey world.
Exploring the whiskies and distilleries of the world and meeting amazing people along the way.
We'll be sticking our noses into our drams and all things whiskey.
So fill your whiskey glass and join the fun.
A warm Whisky Sisters welcome.
Well, the long-awaited Tomintoul episode is finally here. Yes, this was the episode that was recorded/not recorded. We can't promise it's just as full of witty banter as our first go was. Do you think it was actually full of witty banter, Inka? Or do you think it was just full of our usual smash?
I think it was just a smash. And plus, I was feeling a little bit ill still. So yeah, it was probably crap anyway.
It was probably, indeed. So this gives us the opportunity for this episode to be less crap. But say if you're new to this podcast, we are only fooling around. Come on in and enjoy the fun.
Yes, and it's time for us to stick our noses into the latest whiskey news.
Stick your nose in it.
So there could be a strike on the horizon. Trade unions GMB Scotland and Unite said staff at Chivas Brothers, the Scotch whisky arm of Pernod Ricard, would vote on strike action unless a significantly improved offer on wages was made.
Ooh.
GMB Scotland said Chivas Brothers, whose brand includes Ballantine's and Chivas Regal, for example, is sticking to a 6.4% pay increase offer despite what is described as surging sales.
It's 6.4%. Is that not quite good? Am I being dumb?
Well, I guess because the sales that they're doing so well as a collective, they probably think not really.
Okay.
I don't know what the pay has been before the pay rise.
For sure, that's true.
So David Hume, GMB Scotland organizer, said that the offer was unacceptable when Chivas and its parent company, Pernod Ricard, have seen unprecedented sales around the world. He said our members are being asked to accept a pay rise that is below the rate of inflation while reading how the owners are celebrating some of the highest sales ever recorded. So I can see that being a problem.
See that's leaving a bad taste in the mouth.
Yes. And he also says that sales of the whiskey made in Scotland are booming around the world, but the workers making it are told they must accept effective pay cut in the middle of cost of living crisis. The salary offer was rejected by 97% of the Unite members, and Chivas Brothers employs around 1,600 workers in Scotland.
Very interesting. Well, I hope they get their rise if the company is doing so well and making big juicy profits. Share the slice of the pie with your people, big fat cats. A new report from the Scotland 5G Centre suggests that Scottish whisky distilleries could gain major benefits using 5G, equating to nearly £400,000 annually for a medium-large distillery. More specifically, the report argues that the key benefits will be generated in health and safety, cask management, site management, and maintenance and security. This includes 5G-enabled geofencing. It can reduce health and safety incidents apparently by 50% by warning employees in real time when they enter high-risk areas. 5G-enabled chips that can be used to improve cask management efficiency by 15%, saving distilleries a large £125,000 a year. Implemented automated security measures and using 5G asset tracking to reduce equipment downtime by half. The report is based on preliminary findings from a study conducted at a distillery in central Scotland, which produces approximately 250,000 litres of whisky per year. There are currently 146 malt and grain distilleries in Scotland producing around 401 million litres a year. As a result, this means that the industry stands to gain over 30 million over the next 5 years through the deployment of 5G.
Yeah, I think that's kind of interesting, but a lot of Scotch whiskey is made in rural areas, and even now you struggle to use your phone there. So how are they gonna get 5G working everywhere? And isn't it quite risky? I guess you still have the manual aspect, so if anything goes wrong, but I'm not sure.
Is 5G the one that a lot of conspiracy theory controversy is around, that it's like frying our brains and stuff?
I think maybe it might be. But isn't phones and all that anyway frying our brains and
For sure.
things?
My dad told me in the 1980s that the microwave was like just going to fry everybody's soul pretty much. Yeah.
I know. Like, don't stand in front of the microwave and wait for the food. You get all sorts of waves
For
coming at
sure.
you.
And don't even microwave anything anyway. Yeah, for sure.
Well, yeah, I don't use microwave. I do think that it probably kills a lot of the nutrients in the food with all those waves. I don't know.
As a teenager, I quite liked it though, because it just felt like quite modern and jazzy and I didn't care about nutrients.
And it was fast because, teenagers are lazy.
Boom.
So, another news, the Scotch Malt Whisky Society set a world record for the biggest online whiskey tasting, with drams shared in more than 15 countries.
Ooh, check them out.
Yeah, they were celebrating their 40th anniversary on Saturday, 30th of September, by setting a Guinness World Record title for most participants in an online whiskey tasting event. And they had, during the 45-minute event, there was 447 members, and they were all tasting the same 3 whiskies simultaneously. I did hear some feedback that I think there were more people attending, but they really struggled to get in line. So I think they had some technical issues, but it's good that they still managed to break the record.
If only they had 5G.
Yeah. Good one. They had participants from the UK, US, Australia, Japan, China, South Africa, and more. They currently have 40,000 members altogether and overall in 20 countries. So good stuff.
So some people had to drink their drams in the morning.
Yes, they did. So in New York, I think it was 9 a.m. and Australia, it was at midnight.
Poof, that's devotion for you.
Whisky Sisters!
Okay, so let's get stuck into the main event and talk about Tomintoul Distillery, which was established in 1945 and is located near to the village of Tomintoul, the highest village in the Highlands of Scotland and in the heart of the Cairngorm National Park. The company was born from the merger of 2 Glasgow whisky brokers. The group's aim was to build a new Speyside distillery to satisfy a surge in demand for malt whisky. A site was chosen just north of Tomintoul near the Ballantrae Spring. And not satisfied with operating the one distillery, Tomintoul Glenlivet Distillery Company purchased Fetter Cairn from Mr. Tom Scott Sutherland in 1971. And in 1973, Tomintoul Glenlivet was acquired by Scottish and Universal Investment Trust and was merged with blending firm White Mackay, which had also been purchased in the same year. Tomintoul Glenlivet was incorporated as a limited company in 1985 and sold on to independent bottler Angus Dundee in the year 2000.
The distillery actually released an exclusive second edition of its 40-year-old expression just recently. Did you see that on social media?
If I have, I've forgotten.
The rich and complex single malt has been bottled at a cask strength of 43.1% ABV, and there were only 165 individually numbered bottles available globally for $4,000. Ooh. Yeah. Also, this summer, Tomintoul also announced a new range that consists of 7 experimental single malts with contemporary cask finishes. So it was a quite long list as well. Like, I was quite shocked how many new releases they have. So there's Caribbean cask finish, cognac, Merlot, PX, Pinot Noir, Tawny Port, and white port cask finish from Portugal.
Whew, that is quite a hefty list indeed.
Yeah, some really interesting finishes there.
Tomintoul Cigar Malt, we actually have an episode on that if you want to tune in, is an intricate combination of classic Tomintoul single malt and rare peated Tomintoul single malt, with each of these individual single malts have been matured fully or finished in hand-selected Oloroso sherry butts from Andalusia in Spain.
Yeah, it was quite interesting. I think the mix with the smoky was good.
Yeah. Can we just go back to that 165 bottles at £4,000 each?
Yeah.
How many of those do you guess are going to end up on whiskey shelves to be drunk? Do you
not.
think they're show bottles just as a groin slap or collector's pieces mostly?
I think probably yes, and they might end up popping up on some auction later on or something like that.
Yeah, maybe bought more for investment. It'd be interesting to hear. Tomintoul is one of the few Speyside whiskies to produce a more heavily peated malt whisky. The standard production process is replaced for 2 weeks every year with a process to make a whisky with a peatier character. This variation of the Tomintoul whisky is usually referred to as Old Ballantrae. Ballantrae is a heavily peated single malt with a distinctively rich, sweet, creamy, and campfire smoke flavour profile. This is in contrast to the sea-influenced Islay peaty malts. But today we're sampling 2 whiskies from their core range.
Have you tried the Old Ballantrae?
I have, and I thought I'd kept some for you, but clearly I haven't if you don't have any. I quite enjoyed it. I quite like the non-heavy hitting Islay peated drams more than the kind of medicinal type. And I think you might have quite enjoyed it as well. So we must get our hands on them again.
I must give it a go next time I'm in some bar. That's it. Because the kind of sweet, creamy campfire smoke sounds intriguing.
I like the name as well, Old Ballantrae. There's just a cuteness to it.
Dram On Fire.
So Tomintoul is known for its exceptionally smooth and mellow handcrafted whiskey, which it attributes to the natural environment from the fresh mountain air of the national park to the soft, pure water from the Ballantrae spring. So this Tomintoul 14 years old that we're trying now is bottled at 46% ABV, non-chill filtered and matured in American oak ex-bourbon casks.
I think they refer to, or certainly used to, as the gentle dram. Have you heard that before? Yeah,
I have actually, and I do think it's gentle and mellow for sure. So the color, I would say, is very light goldeny.
Yeah, spring sunshine.
Yes, so probably thinking refill bourbon cask maybe because the color is so light. The nose, I think it needed to be in the glass for quite a while before I was getting anything really.
And this is after your cold has cleared still.
Yeah, but the thing is, exactly, I'm glad in a way. I was excited to try this again because last time I did have a bit of a cold and I was worried that I wasn't getting much because of the cold. But I do have to say that I'm still not like getting tons. It's such a mellow whiskey, so it's very subtle on the nose. But with the air, I'm starting to get a bit more like vanilla and some caramel notes. At the beginning as well, there was kind of something gluey and like I was getting candied ginger and pineapple, but I'm not really getting that much now. That now it's much sweeter.
I would agree, not in your face, on the nose, albeit you're having to put your face right in it to get the notes. I also have that kind of vanilla, maybe a kind of apple pie, vanilla essence, a wee hint of Parma violet sweetness on the nose, but something quite citrusy for me, lemony.
Yeah, and something a bit grassy. I think at some point.
Non-offensive.
Yeah, but it's not like exciting.
No, there's nothing arousing about it on the nose. So what about the palate?
So I was getting like wet oak, something like peppery, ginger, spice, maybe even some like piney juniper in there. And then plenty of citrus like lime, I was thinking. And it was quite watery and light texture-wise.
Yeah, I think definitely light. I'm with you on the kind of peppery. I got quite a citrus fruit zest, maybe kind of quite zingy, maybe bitter orchard fruits, or I was even thinking like lemon sherbets. But I like, what herb did you say there?
Oh, I just said piney juniper berries.
Piney
but you know, like
berries.
juniper bush is kind of
exactly.
also.
Yeah, I think that's a really good shout. With a kind of more sipping, I was kind of struggling with notes, but I thought maybe I'm getting a wee bit of short crust pastry, kind of that pastry that you can use in sweet or savoury dishes, and maybe the gentleness of whipped cream. But I felt there was a bit of kind of guessing as if I was having to draw the tasting notes out.
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah, it's funny that you say the whipped cream, actually. I feel like now on the finish, I'm getting a little bit of that kind of whipped creamy on the top of my...
The lemon followed through to the finish for me, maybe a wee bit biscuity, kind of medium length and lemony on the finish.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did the palate excite you more than the nose?
No, not really. It's such a light dram. I could see it like working in the summer with you just kind of.
See it working in a tea break if you were still allowed to drink at work.
Yeah, with the little biscuit on the side or something.
Just like a morning dram with a tea biscuit.
Yeah, I know. People still use the term morning dram, but it's kind of like, who has a morning dram?
Well,
Depends what time you wake up, I guess. So, okay, the next one then.
Tomintoul, 16 years old, bottled at 40% ABV and has been crafted from a selection of the finest American oak ex-bourbon barrels. Let's brace for that, multi-award winning.
Yeah, color-wise, similar-ish.
Similar-ish, maybe slightly more golden, but still very light.
So again, same problem. I didn't get anything straight away. It was quite, it's hard to get anything. But then with air, it becomes caramelly, tannic tea cakes for me, milk chocolate coated nuts.
I'm totally with you that it was hard to get stuff on the nose. I had to take super big sniffs. I got like a toffee sauce, dried out like grassy area, maybe some peaches, maybe some pear.
Yeah, I was getting much more on the sweeter notes, like Maltesers and things like that.
Could go a Malteser with us right now.
Anything else that you...
Not really, and I'm getting back in for more now. Let me sniff.
While you sniff, I can tell you my palate, which I really don't have much to say again.
Go for it.
Cinnamon on watermelon, but like watermelon that's not super sweet.
Mm-hmm.
There's some sort of spice, but that kind of watery, slightly fruity, watery aspect. Yeah, I don't know. It's just not very sweet. It wasn't really... I was maybe getting some brown bread. There's definitely black pepper more on the finish than at first. Like it kind of comes later.
Oh, apologies, Inka. I over-sniffed there, went into a coughing fit, and now I have like a crazy voice. I think they are quite similar drams. Less sour, but still sour. A white pepper spice, sour, fizzy sweets, and maybe like a licorice flavour as well. But then it did, with more sipping, get a bit gentler, because at first I was like, ooh, nasty sour, nasty white pepper, and I don't really like licorice. But it did soften, gentler, but not super sweet, and kind of reminded me of, like when you do baking and you use healthier ingredients, like more honey, less sugar, and maybe like mashed fruit and stuff, healthy baked goods. I kind of got in the palate. And I've just written a long finish and that's it. Just like it just wasn't giving me much.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if it was that long. I think maybe I would prefer the 14 on the palate, the 16 on the nose, but I don't know. I'm not like super excited about these. They're just too light, a little bit too meh for me. I prefer a little bit more oomph from my whiskies.
Too gentle. We need
Too
a bit more of
gentle.
a firm hold, Inka.
Yeah. I don't do gentle.
We need flung about the dance floor.
Yes.
Tomintoul's just sidestepping, isn't it? It's just doing a wee cheeky sidestep, but we want flung about the floor.
It's not calling us like, the Glencadam was singing for you and all that.
Exactly. And I want to like the Tomintoul more because, it's related to Glencadam, right? And that totally like ignites my soul fires. And as you say, sings to me, but
yeah,
I'm not hearing anything on the airwaves here.
But I guess they are too, even if they have the same ownership and so on. Obviously, they are very different distilleries. And we did
can have two cousins in a family, and they're very different.
For sure. But we did kind of remember with the cigar malt, we kind of did enjoy it, but it wasn't also that exciting. Like it was still a little bit light and watery. Like it was very Tomintoul like. I guess at least now I know I can tell you what Tomintoul Distillery kind of is all about.
I'll revisit Old Ballantrae and you can get a taste of that, and it'll be interesting to see what your thoughts are on their peated drop. Interested to hear your thoughts on their peated whiskey.
Whisky Sisters Whisky Fact.
So have you ever seen the Tomintoul perfume bottle whiskey?
No, I certainly have not. What's all this about?
I know, it's confusing. So basically, it was made by White and McKee in the late 70s and it existed throughout the 80s as well. And they had non-age statement, 8-year-old and 12-year-old releases in these bottles. And it was kind of old style whiskey, I guess, like refill hogsheads, like ex-sherry, very rich, unpeated. And if you would compare it, I actually contacted Ian for a little bit more intel on this perfume bottles, and he told me that to compare it to a current release, it probably would be similar to the 12-year-old Oloroso, which spent 10. Yeah, so that one spent 10 years in ex-bourbon and 2 years finish in Oloroso. Although he did point out that the difference would be that during the perfume bottle era, they didn't actually do secondary maturation at all. So it would just be a mix of different casks. So it could be like mix of sherry and bourbon rather than, putting one and then the other.
Oh.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. Basically, it's kind of, I'll send you a picture and obviously post a picture for our socials so people can see. It really just doesn't look like whiskey at all. It does look like a perfume bottle, but it is 70 centiliters, so it's a full size.
Like an old-fashioned one with the plume thing that you go and it pops out.
No, although that would be really funny. No, it's more like
we could have a cigarette in a holder and wear like a big fur-trimmed dressing gown and little slippers with heels.
Yeah.
And then have the old-fashioned perfume bottle with whiskey.
No, it's not quite as perfumey. It's more kind of round or like long. Hard to explain. I'll post a picture.
Show us the picture, Inka.
Yeah. So the distillery actually looked into bringing it back as a laugh and as a kind of, it's a piece of history basically. But the glass mold apparently had broken, so they gave up on the idea because it's quite hard to get it redone and so on. And then they just thought maybe people wouldn't get it anyway and just thought, what are they doing basically? But you can still find some bottles in auctions, although they're becoming rarer and rarer. So yes, if we see one, maybe we'll get one. Who knows? Because it's just kind of fun. I don't think they were that expensive.
Well, that's interesting, especially if they're not able to make them anymore. They might become super collectible, but it sounds quite a funky item to own anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And because it was such a long period of time that they had them in production, so that's why there were still quite a few available. But Ian did say that apparently they're quite hard to pour because their opening is so small, like in a little bottle. Yeah.
Cool.
One more thing. So I saw Master of Malt to describe it perfectly, and I really like this one, so I'm just going to read it how they wrote it. Do you often think to yourself, golly, I wish I could find a bottle of Tomintoul 12-year-old single malt from the 1980s that looked like it belonged in the daydream of someone in the 1970s, imagining what the world would look like in the 2020s.
That's a conundrum.
Yes.
Fantastic. That's brilliant.
I know. And one more fact for you before we go. So before the famous Intrepid bottle that was 311 liters, do you remember that one? I think it was in Macallan.
Oh, okay.
Tomintoul was the distillery to hold the Guinness World Record entry in 2009 for the largest bottle of whiskey in the world. A massive 105.3 liters of Tomintoul 14-year-old.
I wonder what happened to that bottle of the gentle dram. That's a whole lot of gentle.
I know. Imagine buying that and then you'd be like, oh, it's not really for me.
For sure.
Dram dom crap.
Hey, this isn't a fact. It's just more random crap. But you haven't happened to watch the new Netflix show, The Fall of the House of Usher, have you?
No, I have not.
Well,
the deets.
So I've only started watching it. I've only watched one episode, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, what is it?
I actually watched the Dirt movie, the Mötley Crüe, based on the Mötley Crüe book last night.
Did you? Did you like it?
Well, it's not the greatest thing, but I just like all the music.
The music and all the outfits are amazing, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's so crazy, isn't it?
Totally mental.
Totally mental, absolutely. Okay, so The Fall of the House of Usher is an 8-episode horror series based loosely on the Edgar Allan Poe story of the same name. And it's from writer-director Mike Flanagan, who did The Haunting of Hill House and The Midnight Club. So anyway, I've just watched one episode, and so I'm not going to do any like plot spoilers other than to say one of the characters is like pitching to his relative about this bar and stuff he wants to open, and he keeps talking about Glenfiddich.
Oh.
And that's basically why I'm mentioning it, and that's it. But
That was your whiskey connection. I know I don't really do horror. I would probably need quite a lot of whiskey to be able to watch anything horror stuff.
well, in my teenage years, I watched a lot of horror because that was part of the jam. But of course, our pal Mike at Whiskey Morgue, who I hope those of you that have watched The Silence of the Drams noticed Mike from Whiskey Morgue's cameo role in that, playing Miggs in that film. But since we've been like internet friends with Mike, he's been posting so much about some amazing films, like some are more thriller vibes. So I'm not so much horror genre.
Yeah.
I do like a thriller.
Oh, I love a thriller. Yeah.
Yeah, because like horror can be like just like gory and gross and terrifying and all that. But so I don't know if I like this Fall of the House of Usher. But I was thinking, oh, do Glenfiddich know they're being mentioned? Are they sponsoring this? Is the writer a fan of Glenfiddich? Like, I want to know. We should ask Mark, shouldn't we?
Also, that was a good mention considering Halloween is on Tuesday next week. That's our Halloween input, basically.
That's our gift to the world for All Hallows Eve for this year.
Well, actually, in Italy, there is like all the kids apparently always dress up really scary. Mm-hmm. So my friend's kid, who is 5 years old, 5, and he's dressing up as the Reaper, the
Grim Reaper.
Yeah. I know, it's really scary. But anyway, they're gonna go around this, all the bars and restaurants in this one square are gonna like, they're giving candy to the kids and all that. And then the next day is bank holiday, so we might just join them and go and see all the scary.
That's fun. I wasn't planning on dressing up, but part of me thinks I want to wear my Clarice Starling outfit from The Silence of the Drams because she's my hero.
Yes, I know. I do also. I was laughing that you finally became FBI agent that you always dreamed that you would be.
Let me tell you this, right? So you know how there's some of the scenes I was in the local woods running, right, with my fake FBI sweater on. So I drove home, right? And for a tiny split second, can I just say as well, I'm glad that nobody came across me in the woods because I had like a whiskey bottle and crime scene tape and a wig on and pearls and like fake sweat and all that, like to get into it. And I was filming myself with a film attached to a tree by duct tape. So it just was all a bit terrifying, but nobody came across me. So anyway, I had my bag of goodies and I had my FBI sweater and I still had my Clarice wig and all that on. And I came out the car and for a split second, I saw my reflection and I felt proud of myself.
Yeah. Well, you should be. It was really good.
I was like, no, I felt proud of myself like I was at the FBI Academy. Like I was at Quantico coming home.
Oh,
for a microsecond, Inka. I was there. I was there.
Oh, that's funny. I thought you were just proud that costume worked so well.
No, I was delusional. I was delusional with pride that I was an FBI young candidate, trainee, returning from Quantico. So there we go. That's an insight into my psyche for you.
You've been listening to the Whisky Sisters podcast.
Okay, well, Inka, have a lovely Halloween. Ooh, whatever you're up to. I hope the Grim Reaper doesn't get you and you're alive for our next episode.
Next week, we'll be chatting all things Glencadam and sample one of the drams. And do you want to spill the news?
Yes, we've got another whiskey pal on the airwaves, don't we?
Yes, it's been a while, so excited.
Excited for that. And somebody who loves their whiskey and is a badass artist. So we look forward to welcoming her. You know the score, regular listeners. Follow us on Instagram. If you've unfollowed us because you can't be bothered, give us another try. It's whiskysisters.podcast, X at Whisky Sisters, and Facebook at Whisky Sisters Podcast. Oh, and thank you so much to the person that recently gave us a lovely review and said we have sexy, sexy voices.
I know. That was funny because I was thinking, oh, the previous episode that didn't record, or the Tomintoul one, I feel like I was a bit throaty. So
there we go. Thank you, listeners.
Yes. May your glass be full.
Yeah, if you give us a 5-star review, I hope your glass is full. If you don't, I hope it's just half full. Have a spooky week, Inka.
Have a haunted weekend.